Testing. All right. Oh, and I got a cough. Okay, try number two. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Cool Beans Hot Stuff. Today is another episode of Film Buff Fridays, which is my favorite day of the week. And today I'm learning a little bit about lighting as far as film theory goes. This is part four of my 8 Elements of Film Theory series, where I'm learning what all the 8 elements of film theory are. The 8 items, 8 aspects of a movie that film theorists analyze when theorizing about the movie. So we're on number four, which is, if you look at my graphic right here, my handy dandy pretty gay film flower, we are on number four, lighting. We've already gone through different types of film, shots, that's camera shots, camera angles, and now we're going to get into lighting a scene, right? So if you haven't seen any of those other 3 videos, they're all on my YouTube channel in my Film Buff Friday playlist, as is my kind of like introductory video on this whole concept, 8 elements of film theory. And there's a whole bunch of other film theory videos on there. There's formalism film theory, introduction to structuralist film theory, introduction to auteur film theory. So we got a whole bunch of them. Actually, I don't know if I've done formalism film theory as of yet. Hold on. No, I haven't done formalism yet. That's actually next Friday. So haven't done that one. That won't be on the YouTube channel. But you can go check out all those other videos and kind of get like up to speed on what it is I'm learning, or at least up to speed on those other topics. But today, we're just going to focus on the different kinds of lighting that are typically used in film and what they are used for, the purpose behind them, right? So, when I on this channel begin, what I really want to do with this channel on Fridays is review films. I think that would be a blast. That would be something fun that I could do for a few hours on my Fridays. And before I do that, I kind of want to learn about all this shit, right? That's the whole point. I'm learning new things with this channel. That's the whole point of it. And so, yeah, today we're going to learn how to read the lighting of a movie so we know what the director entailed, what they intended. If the lighting is good, bad, whatever, then we can critique it, right? But if we don't know how the fuck to light or what kind of lighting is what and what the purpose of it is, then we can't do that. So that's what we're going to do today. We are talking about lighting. Might not be super exciting. If you clicked on the video, I mean, you get what you see there, right? Like there is no crazy what's the clickbait titles to any of these videos. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you clicked on it, then you're probably here for it. So if you're watching, then it'll probably be exciting for you. If not, if you're not interested in film theory, then this is probably a bummer. Maybe, go watch a Mr. Beast video or some shit. But right now, we're going to get into the boring old subject of film theory, right? That's what we're doing today. I like it. I enjoy it. So I'm pretty excited about it. If you're watching this live, then thanks for tuning in. Cutie Pie, I know you're watching. So thank you as always, my #1 fan. And if you're seeing this on YouTube, I hope you enjoy the video and I hope you find it educational, maybe kind of entertaining, maybe, if I can get a good joke out here or there. If you do, then please like and subscribe to the channel. That always helps out, and I would really appreciate it. And you can get more access to a lot more of these film theory videos that I've been doing. I do it every Friday. So every Friday, I'm putting out a new 2-hour, 3-hour long stream about some film theory or film related topic. So, yeah, subscribe for that. So, anyways, let's go ahead and hop into it. I already showed you my pretty little gay flower of film theory up here. Gives us all 8 of the elements of film theory that we need to go over. We've gone over film, shots, angles, we're on lighting. Not next week, but the week after, we'll be going over color, then sound, editing, and mise en scène. All right, so let's get into lighting. What about lighting? All right, so there are 4 main kinds of lighting that we're going to go over today. The web page that I'm using as kind of a guide is nofilmschool.com. I use them as a guide pretty regularly when talking about film theory orientated stuff because it's just real nice, Easy peasy by the numbers. Really can't fuck it up. Easy to follow along with. And then we'll be watching some videos to kind of help out, to help us grasp, understand each form of lighting a little better. But our four kinds of lighting are high key lighting, low key lighting, chiaroscuro lighting, and silhouette lighting or black lighting. Okay. So we're going to go through these one at a time, take them one piece of lighting at a time, get through all four of them. And then I'll add a couple of other different kinds of lighting that exist, or at least different lighting techniques at the end of the video. And if we have time, I got a couple videos on those as well. But let's start up here with the first one, high key lighting. So what is high key lighting? Type of lighting number one. It's lighting that puts an emphasis on brightness, even illumination, and minimizing shadows. Okay. And if you have a hard time visualizing what this would look like, we're going to go over it here in a few minutes, give you some examples of it, right? So the technique for this uses a strong fill light to reduce contrast, along with a key light and often a backlight. So this is just different kinds of lighting. I kind of know a little bit about this, so maybe I can fill this in a tiny bit. Your key lighting is the light that's put on the subject of the video, right? So like my key light is right up here and it shines on me to illuminate me. So I'm brighter than the background and everything else, right? Then fill lighting is to eliminate shadows in the room. And as you can probably tell behind me, I don't really got a whole lot of fill lighting. I do have up lighting, it's called, down here in the corner. It's pointed up, but it's pointing behind me, which isn't generally, if you want to get rid of the fill lighting, see all these shadows behind me, especially when it comes to that cupboard over there, you'd want a light pointed right at that. It's just essentially a fill light is pointed at the shadows to eliminate the shadows. So usually it's facing opposite a lot of times from the key light. So the key light's facing this way. The fill light would be facing that way, usually. In some cases, it depends on what you're trying to fill. But for me, I didn't need a fill light. I just want, me to be illuminated, and then everything else around me is okay with being kind of dark. And then backlighting, it's kind of backlighting, but that would be that right there, that red little stick that glows red. That would be the closest thing I have to backlighting. But backlighting would be lighting that lights up behind you, right? And that creates a little bit more contrast when you light up everything behind you and you. It creates a little bit more of a contrast between you and your background. Okay, so the whole point, though, is the effects. The effect right here, let's read it. The effect of it is to create an optimistic, upbeat, and youthful feel. Shadows are minimal and details are clearly visible, often used in comedies, sitcoms, and commercials. So yeah, high key lighting really makes everything bright. It takes most of the shadows out of the room, which gives the picture a very energetic, like they said, energetic, upbeat, optimistic feel, very happy feel, which is why it's regularly used in sitcoms and comedies. And there's a lot of detail. More detail of the room behind you, the person being lit up, the people being lit up, everything is lit up, so you can see a lot more of the details. Obviously, the darker things are, the less you're going to see, right? But that's what they're going for with high key lighting, right? So we're going to learn, keep reading a little bit about it, because that's the whole point. I'm here to learn what I can about all of this. So I'm not looking to be an expert, but once we're done going over all these film theory videos, we're going to be practicing. I'm going to be practicing my film theory skill set that I'm building on. And it's good to know these kinds of things, right? You kind of want to know everything you need to know. Right now, we're just learning the basics, and we're learning as much as we can about them. So let's read a little bit more about high key lighting from Studio Binder. This is a website and a YouTube channel that I go to regularly. If you've watched any of my film theory videos, you're going to recognize it. So high key lighting is a lighting style that results in a brightly lit frame with soft lighting, minimal shadows, and low contrast. In photography, film, and television, this lighting style uses minimal shadows with a majority of the frame composed of highlights. This is commonly opposite of low key lighting that relies on high contrast and harsh shadows. The result of this bright lighting style is cheerful, airy, and positive mood that is often utilized in sitcoms, comedies, and commercial work. Oh, well, there you go. So it's film used to eliminate shadows, soft lighting, bright frame, full of highlights, and low contrast. So let's read a little bit about the history of it. Because I know you're like, oh, that's super fucking interesting, Tony. Please tell me more. What is high key lighting in film? To answer this question, we have to take a look at the history of the technique. The use of this technique can actually be traced back to more logistical use than stylistic. In the early days of television and film, technological limitations made it difficult for filmmakers to process pictures with higher contrast ratios. Films and TV often veered to opposite ends of the lighting spectrum. This included utilizing either low key lighting and high contrast, such as in film noir, or high key lighting for more exposed subjects and sets. Some great early examples can be seen on the set of I Love Lucy. Here's a good picture of that. If you're looking at this set, you can see how they got lights from above. You can't see the lights, but they're coming down and lining up as much as they can of this room. Very few. Look at these doors right here. You got shadows. See where those shadows are at, how they're almost localized directly under the object, right? As compared to like if you look at me and you look at like my background, you got shadows all over the place. These shadows are just boop straight down to eliminate them as much as possible. You'll notice the lights on every side of the set that achieve this shadowless style that continues to be in sitcoms to this day. The pioneer of this lighting style is the inimitable cinematographer Carl Freund. Freund was ironically famous for his use of more dramatic lighting in his work as the 1932 The Mummy. That's fucking dope. I love that movie. 1931 Dracula, and 1927 Metropolis. However, when he took on being the director of photography for the sitcom I Love Lucy, Freund found the challenge of shooting in front of a live audience with a multi-camera setup exciting. His solution? High-key lighting. And this will be a breakdown of it that we're not going to get into. High-key lighting video, because I got my own video, right? High-key video lighting has a major benefit to productions of television shows as well as films because of the bright lighting setup required very minimal lighting changes from scene to scene. That is kind of a benefit. Once everything is lit up, you just don't change it, right? This was incredibly efficient and resulted in saving both money and time for production companies. However, as the film and television industry grew, so did technology and production budgets. Filmmakers utilized high key for more than just saving time, they used it to create a mood. Today, this lighting can be found throughout television and film. Filmmakers utilize the lighting style to create a joyful, cheerful, lighthearted mood that elevates stories in sitcoms, comedies, and even uplifting scenes and dramas. Narratively, the bright aesthetic contributes to a more joyful tone. And that really is what we're looking for as far as what we're learning about this lighting for, right? Because we're not learning, if you go down here, how to achieve high key lighting, this website Studio Binder is made for people who want to make movies. This is how to use these specific techniques, that sort of thing. We're not shooting a movie anytime soon, at least I'm not. And what we're after is just trying to understand why people use this lighting. So when we watch a movie and we see high key lighting, we can, one, call it out and say, oh, that's high key lighting in this scene. And two, we can tell if it was used appropriately or not. Like, was this a correct way to light the scene, or did this completely fuck up the emotion that the scene was supposed to convey, right? So that's why we're interested in it. So that right there, we want to make a note that you're trying to achieve lightheartedness, joyful tones, optimism, clear definition, and a lot of details when you're using the high key lighting, right? So we're going to switch over to this guy. Who is this guy? Premium Beat by Shutterstock. So I don't know anything about them. This is Understanding High Key Lighting, though, cinematography tips. We're going to see what they have to say about it and see how good their channel is. They're a pretty big, decent sized channel, much bigger than me. So let's see what they got to say about high key lighting.
Hi, my name is Rubidium. Today we are looking at high key lighting, what it is, how to achieve it, and why you would want to use it.
Did he just say his name was Rubidium? That's interesting. That's like a fucking, sounds like an element off the periodic table. Rubidium. All right.
Now, I'm a big fan of genre
Yeah,
filmmaking
rubidium.
and
Rubidium
neo-noir,
woo.
where one side of the actor's face is totally lit and the other one falls off into absolute darkness. That is high ratio, extreme camera lighting, but I understand that it's not for every project and it's not for every type of video. High key is a style of lighting where one side of the actor's face is almost the same, not quite, but almost the same, within about a stop or two of the other side of the actor's face, so that the talent really stands out from the background. They really pop. They really exist in this beautiful world where everything looks amazing. This is the kind of lighting you'll see in comedies like The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, like Wedding Crashers, like Bridesmaids. Any lighthearted, funny tale of beautiful people doing interesting things, where we're existing in this world where everything's just as bright as it needs to be. I would personally define high key lighting as any time where your ratios are within a stop or a stop and a half at most. That means
And ratios and stops, that means absolutely nothing to me. I have no idea what any of that is. We don't really need to know what it is for film theory purposes, as far as I'm aware. You know, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments if you don't believe so. But this is more for the technique, right? We're just kind of understanding, right? We're hearing it from the people who would use high key lighting, why they use high key lighting. So, Mr. Rubidium here is the guy to go to for
means
that.
that the light side of the person's face is twice as bright as the dark side of the person's face. If they're even, and we'll show this a little bit later, if the two sides of the face are equally lit, you don't get any dimension, you get a very flat image, and it looks a little bit odd. So keeping it within half a stop to one stop is usually where high key lighting for comedy sort of sits. But to give you a concrete example of this, I set out to light myself in a house with this exact lighting style. Here in the first pass, you see the available light. You know, this was a pretty well lit room, or two rooms, with light coming from both sides. It's
big difference.
Not particularly high key, even though I'm right now.
Yeah. So you can see from that first one to this one just how much darker he is.
Next to a window, and there's a window behind me. To get that light coming in the window, what I did was put a quarter grid silk over the window. I used gaffer's tape. Then I put a Lupa Super Panel 60, which is around as bright as a Sky Panel S60, outside the window, pushing in. That still didn't give me the level that I wanted, so I added a second light. This is a generator to really pump up the level. Jesus. This gave me a nice, smooth, even light on the high side of my face, meaning the side that was going to be the brightest side. I then added a Fresnel, a Lupo 650 LED, on a stand behind me out of shot, so that it would give me that nice edge light that.
There you go, right there. See that? That's interesting. That's a lot just to get the lighting for this one thing. I did not put that much thought into my lighting, nor will I. You're stuck with my random ass lights in different places. I mean, compared to how much this guy's thinking about it, right? That's a fucking science right there, you know? And it looks really good too. You get this shadow just right here and brings out the dimension. It's really good.
Halo behind me, which is so typical of these type of films. Because I now have much more light coming in the window than I have ambient light in the room, that meant that the dark side of my face fell off into maybe around 2 stops below key. What I did then was bring in a Lightmac 2L.
Oh my God, he just keeps going.
Kino style light. I tried it above camera, behind the camera, but it didn't have enough output to compete with all the light coming in the window. So I then moved it in front of camera, but right above. Now this is something that I think a lot of people get wrong about high key lighting. What they do is place the fill light off to the opposite side, on the fill side of the subject, which is natural. The problem with this is it flattens everything out. By placing the fill light behind camera, you don't get a second set of competing shadows. It fills in the shadows that are created from the key light. Now this gave us what I thought was a really good image, but the room behind me was too dark and the background was too dark. So on the glass windows of the door.
Oh wow, damn, this is a lot of work for this one thing. You know, I can't blame any streamers for not putting this much effort into their lighting. That's pretty crazy. I mean, I'm excited to see what the final product is, though. Because honestly, I thought, here, where are we at? 349. You know, before he added all that, I thought that looked fine. You know, I'm like, you look like a person, you know, you're just a normal dude. But no, not good enough. Okay.
The glass windows of the door, I added another quarter grit silk, this time with painter's tape because I didn't want to pull off the paint. And I added a Aperture 300D Mark II, filled in the ambient of the room and stopped the background being too dark. It's important to remember that high key lighting isn't just the ratio between the key and fill side of the subject's face. It's also the ratio between the subject and the background. You can't have a really brightly lit subject in a really dark background, or your image is going to look incredibly lit, meaning it's going to look like it was lit by film lights and not by the natural ambience of the scene. The added advantage of this Aperture 300D Mark II coming through the door is it lit me as I walked from the couch to the table. Another big hurdle of high key lighting is that only the places where the actors sit or stand are lit, and so they'll walk through areas of darkness to get between those places. Ideally, you want to get as much light as you can in there at the right ratio so that the actors, as they move through the scene, are lit as well as when they're sitting where you want them to sit on their mark. You may also notice that there is a lot of color in this scene. The flowers on the table, the blue rug, the paintings in the background. That's another necessary element of high key lighting, is that there is enough color and life in the scene to really sell the tone you're going for. If this whole scene was black and white, it wouldn't work nearly as well. That is our look at the elements of high key lighting and how to achieve them. To run down the basics, it is a stop or less between your fill side and your key side, and a stop and a half or less between your subject and its background. The best way to do this is by fill behind camera rather than the opposite side. You can see here when we filled from the opposite side, you get a very flat image that doesn't really have any dimension to it. I hope this was helpful for people out there.
Wow, that is helpful. It definitely impresses upon me that I have no fucking idea what I'm doing when it comes to lighting. I think I do, but I don't. It happens so often. I think I know what I'm talking about. And then I watch a video from somebody who knows what they're talking about, and I'm like, yeah, that's right, I suck. But fucking A, does this guy know what he's talking about? At least compared to me. Premium Beat by Shuttershock was the name of this guy's channel. And yeah, I don't know entirely. Featuring what? Let's go up and see what this guy does on his channel. That was a really good video, though. Premium Beat is a royalty-free library of 55,000 tracks and sound effects, yada yada yada, licensing, yada yada yada. Is dedicated to offering you behind-the-scenes look on how our music gets made while offering compelling and helpful tutorials on sound design, video editing, video production, motion graphics, and more. Well, that's very useful to me. Let's go back, give them a like, and subscribe to that channel, and check them out, particularly if you are a content creator. That right there was very useful. I mean, I keep myself pretty shadowed. Like I said, I got downlight over here and uplight right here, and it looks good enough for me. You know, I'm like, hey, it looks fine. It gives me kind of like blue lights and red. It gives me kind of like a mad scientist vibe, and I like it. But this right here, man, I might have to rethink my whole fucking lighting setup now because of this fucking guy. But all right, now we understand high key lighting. Thanks to Rumunium. Was that guy's name? What did this guy name himself? It was something crazy. Well, he didn't name himself. His parents named him something crazy. It's not like he had a choice. Rubidium. That was it.
My name is Rubidium. Today we are looking at... I'm a big fan of genre
Rubidium.
filmmaking and neon.
Rubidium. Okay, well, Rubidium Woo. Kicking ass, bro. All right, man. So that's high key lighting right there, right? What we want to glean from that, what's important to us who are learning film theory, is it's used to create a poppy, bright, uplifting atmosphere, uplifting scene where you can see all the details and creates that brightness, right? Which adds to that joyful atmosphere. Okay, now we're supposed to, according to No Film School, go to low key lighting. But I first want to go to the chiaroscuro lighting. I believe it's chiaroscuro lighting, but we'll see if I fuck that up or not. Let's move to this one, and then we'll double back to low key lighting. And I have a method to my madness. We'll get to that in a minute. So, the emphasis of chiaroscuro lighting is high contrast lighting with dramatic interplay between lights and shadows. The term comes from Italy, meaning light dark. So this is making use of shadows, right? Whereas like high key lighting is getting rid of shadows, chiaroscuro lighting is going to be using shadows to your advantage. The technique uses strong directional light sources to sculpt the subject, creating sharp contrasts and deep shadows. So we're using light, instead of using the light to take out all the shadows that we can, we're deliberately, or the director of the film would be deliberately placing the light to create shadows in very specific points. The effect creates a sense of depth, volume, mystery, and can be used to highlight specific emotions or themes. Chiaroscuro was prevalent in Renaissance painting and heavily influenced film noir cinematography. And we'll get into that a little bit so we can see examples of this. If you're having, again, a hard time visualizing it, no worries, I got you. I went through this a little bit before we started the stream, so let's get into chiaroscuro. So chiaroscuro is an Italian term used to describe the technique of using light and dark in artwork, particularly a painting. It originally comes from the Renaissance art movement and combines the Italian words chiaro, which means clear or bright, and oscuro, which means obscure or dark. It refers to the dramatic effect experienced when using contrasting areas of light and dark in a visual piece. In cinematography, the term refers to low and high contrast lighting, which creates areas of light and dark in films. This applies especially to black and white films, notably German expressionist films. Later on, Hollywood film noir made chiaroscuro lighting a standard style. So here's a couple examples. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Oh yeah, definitely. Nosferatu. I've never seen The Maltese Falcon. Oh, The Third Man. Seen that. Apocalypse Now. Oh, okay. So let's learn a little bit about it. In order to do that, we need to learn about art. We need to get in our art game here. Before we analyze chiaroscuro lighting in film, we need to explore the chiaroscuro art movement from the Renaissance period, roughly 1400 to 1600 AD, after death. If you're familiar with the Renaissance period, then you know it was a time of extraordinary creative development. Chief among these developments was light shadow techniques in painting. Caravaggio, Leonardo da Vinci, and Rembrandt were some of the most famous painters during the Italian Renaissance, and were all well known for using chiaroscuro lighting in their paintings. But perhaps none were better at it than Caravaggio. For more on Caravaggio and his unique use of chiaroscuro lighting, check out this video. We're not going to check out the video, but we are going to look up some examples of Caravaggio and his artwork. This will give us a good place to start with visualizing the chiaroscuro lighting. I do think the lighting that I have is like super amateur hour chiaroscuro lighting. Okay, I mean, you can kind of see here. Let's pop it up. Hello, ready for my close-up. So you can see how contrast is being made between my downlight, which is down here. You can see it on the back of my hands, right? The light there lights up this side of the face compared to this side of the face, which you get a lot more shadows. And that's the contrast that they're talking about. Shadows versus bright. And, you know, I have it set up this way to kind of create this blue thing that goes here until you hit that red light in the back right here. And it's kind of the same color sequence as my entire stream overlay. And that's why I do it. And it looked fine. You know, out of all the different combinations that I tried, I noticed over here, it does give me a bag under my eye. I look like I haven't slept in days, you know, or I might have gotten punched in the face a few days ago. And sometimes that does happen, like not lately, but when I get back into MMA, you know, that's bound to happen. But, you know, I really don't give a shit. I'm on Twitch, you know, if anybody's judging me like, oh, look at how shitty his lighting is. Well, they got me. You got me. Yep. I suck at lighting. Okay, let's move back over, y'all, to Chiaroscuro's lighting. And I want to use Google, not Bing. I'm not the biggest fan of Google. I think their search engine has turned into shit. But it's still better than Bing. Okay, so here is some examples of chiaroscuro paintings. See this extreme contrast between dark and light, the shadows that he's using here. Also, note the subject matter. That's pretty brutal. This guy's paintings are usually pretty fucking brutal. But again, same thing here. The use of lighting very much plays a big role in creating the moods. Yeah, I mean, we got a dude here getting assassinated by an old person. I can't tell if that's a lady or a dude, and a really upset lady. But look at the drama this lighting creates. See this extreme contrast between his muscles and her front, and then these shadows right here, right? And this is what chiaroscuro lighting is, at least during the Renaissance era. This is what it entailed. Okay. So extreme amount. Oh, I thought we had a boob. I was like, oh, no boobs. I was going to get my stream all kinds of fucking shut down. So no boobies on this stream, you guys. Sorry. But yeah, you get the idea, right? Before we run into any nudity, we're going to click out of that. Okay, so that is chiaroscuro lighting in Renaissance art. So Nerdwriter1 makes an important distinction in his video. That must be this video up, y'all. Which is, when people observed maestro-level chiaroscuro lighting in paintings, they must have been overwhelmed by a visual feeling they have never felt before. The clarity, level of detail, and saturation of Caravaggio's paintings were unrivaled when compared to paintings from the Dark Ages in ancient history. Yeah, this was never before done, so he's ahead of his time, this guy. During the Renaissance period, artists from around Europe adopted chiaroscuro lighting. As such, chiaroscuro has become to be known as a subset art movement of the Renaissance period. But we don't care about none of that shit. Fuck all that shit. All you painters, we're here for the cinema aspect of it, right? Chiaroscuro remained an important part of visual art after the chiaroscuro art movement, but it wasn't majorly popular again until the early days of cinema. The Cabinet of Caligari, Dr. Caligari, widely regarded as one of the first movies of the German Expressionist movement, was largely responsible for revitalizing chiaroscuro lighting. In the image below, you'll notice that the juxtaposition of light and shadows is used to create a surreal effect. Yeah, this movie is chocked full of surrealism. Definitely one of the best. Man, really interesting movie. But you can see this right here. That's not a window per se, although it's kind of shaped like one. It's lighting. That's a pattern lit on the wall to create this effect of like a window that slowly goes away into a point. Pretty crazy, right? Towards the end of the German Expressionist movement, directors started implementing strong chiaroscuro lighting in film noirs. If you don't know what film noirs are, that's kind of like the detective, dark, crime, spy, people spying and backstabbing each other and shit like that, right? Jeez whiz. I'm telling you, this whole last week, as soon as I started getting back into my workouts, it's like I'm clearing all this shit out of my lungs. Been doing it right on stream for you guys. Perhaps the most iconic example of strong chiaroscuro lighting in German cinema can be found in Fritz Lang's M. Look at the visual depth in this still from the film. So again, seeing some chiaroscuro lighting here. Compare this to the high key lighting where everything is lit up, right? This guy's deep shadows right here, heavy shadows, and then bright lights right here, that contrast. So key there is chiaroscuro lighting, contrast, right? That's a good way to remember that, those two C's. This still from M may be a bit overexposed, but it's clear there's a purposeful juxtaposition of light and shadow. As filmmakers like Fritz Lang and cinematographer Carl Freund immigrated to the U.S., they brought their lighting style with them. Chiaroscuro continued to be an important part of cinema through the golden age of Hollywood. Take the greatest Hollywood film of all time, for example. Orson Welles' magnus opus, Citizen Kane, pioneered cinematic techniques in Hollywood. For that, we must give credit to Welles and the great cinematographer Gregg Toland. One of the reasons for Kane's massive and enduring success was how bold and adventurous the cinematography was. So, I did want to point, before we get too deep, Two Out of the Woods. Notice they said the name Carl Freund again, right? They talked about him when we were talking about high key lighting. He introduced high key lighting to television in I Love Lucy. Remember before that, he made the 1932 Frankenstein, the 1932 The Mummy. I don't remember if it was Frankenstein. Yeah, 1932 The Mummy, 1932 The Frankenstein, and a couple others. Oh no, Dracula. It was Dracula. And when he did that, he used chiaroscuro lighting, heavy usage of shadows. So back to Citizen Kane. We had seen the mix of light and shadows before, but not like this. We had seen deep depth of field before, but not like this. The look of Citizen Kane, distinctive and gorgeous as it is, another contemporaneous genre also embraced light and shadow. The hard-boiled detective movies, such as The Maltese Falcon, carry this moody and dramatic lighting through the criminal underworld. Though these obviously weren't horror movies, the lighting was used to suggest darkness we sometimes find in ourselves. Yeah, you can definitely get that vibe from that right there, right? See that shadows that are being created with the lighting here? Bright light. Chiaroscuro lighting became emblematic of the film noirs of the 50s and 60s and even went on to become a major stylistic feature of new Hollywood cinema. The Godfather is a film that is known for its dark lighting, often only lighting half of a character's face, a critical component in chiaroscuro. Watch the video below to see how legendary cinematographer Gordon Willis lit the famous franchise. Ooh, that's really cool. That's an interesting. How long is that video? Only 5 minutes. Wow. We might look into that. Maybe we'll double back around and watch this video. If not, this webpage will be linked in the description to the video, just like always. Because this technique obscures part of the subject in question, it's often used to create suspense and is common in thriller and horror movies. That's two places where you'll see nowadays a lot of chiaroscuro lighting is in horror movies. Of course, The Godfather isn't a typical thriller horror, but it still utilized chiaroscuro to generate suspense. It also did wonders for amplifying the moral ambiguity that runs through the Corleone saga, a callback to the influence of film noir. So you can see the emotions that they're trying to convey here and hint at when using these different kinds of lightings, right? Bright, poppy, optimistic when using high key lighting, moral ambiguity, darkness in chiaroscuro lighting, high contrast. That high contrast in The Godfather is used to represent moral ambiguity, right? Which is a big theme in the Godfather movies. I mean, that's the whole point of the first one is Michael Corleone starts off not wanting to be a gangster like his father, and then scene by scene being pushed more and more into the life of being a gangster. Spoiler alerts. Should have seen the movie by now. If you haven't, that's your fault. So first, I forget exactly what was first, but first, I believe it was his father gets shot and gets put in the hospital after a failed assassination attempt, right? Then it is, his brother Sonny. And then directly after that is his wife in Italy after, oh, shoot, God damn it. What's his name? Al Pacino, Michael Corleone. After Michael Corleone kills, not Santiago. I forget his name. It sounds like some kind of Italian herb. But the guy who shot his father, he kills him, runs to Italy. His brother, Sonny, or Santiago, gets killed. And then while he's in Italy, his wife gets killed in a car bomb. And by the time Michael gets back to the U.S., he's a completely different person. And once we get to the end of the video, or the end of the movie, he is 100% the Godfather. He's his dad. By the end of the movie, you get the baptism and murder scene where in one fell swoop, while he's baptizing, he's becoming the godfather of his nephew. He has a whole slew of gangsters, one of the most famous scenes in gangster movie history, baptism and murder, where he just has every single person that pissed him off killed, murdered in one snap of the finger while he is becoming the Godfather. And that is his character arc that involves a lot of moral ambiguity. There's a lot of, in some cases, there's real world moral ambiguity there. Like when his father is having a hard time going legit because the senators that he's attempting to do business with refuse to play legit with him. They don't like him, and they don't like Michael Corleone, and they are attempting to stop him from Michael and his father. They're attempting to stop him from having any sort of relevance in politics. There's moral ambiguity there when Michael realizes, I guess this is more in the second Godfather, but he realizes, everybody is shit. His girlfriend or his long lost love, Kay, asks him, like, you thought you wanted to go legit, or I thought you wanted to go legit, and now you're a gangster. And, he says, I forget what he says, but she says, you wanted to be a politician. Politicians don't have people killed. And then Michael goes, look who's being naive now. And it's a very moment where she goes, oh, fuck, you're right. Like, so there's that moral ambiguity again, right? He's a bad guy because he's a gangster, but politicians are having people killed and doing gangster ass shit too, and nobody gets upset at them for it. There's moral ambiguity there. So using that style of lighting in The Godfathers to portray that is brilliant. That's fucking awesome, man. So that's the kind of stuff we want to see and look for when we're analyzing our films, right? So here's Casino Royale, where we get more of the chiaroscuro lighting. We're going to go ahead and let's see, what was that again? Yeah, that was just a little bit about it. We can exit out of this and let's learn a little bit about chiaroscuro lighting in film from Studio Binder. I regularly go to this guy's YouTube channel because it's fucking awesome. I don't know, I don't think it's one person, but their channel is kick-ass. Can't say enough good things about these dudes. If you love film theory or just filming techniques, gotta check these guys out, man. Like their video. At the end of the video, I have numerous videos from this channel that we're not going to watch, but I'll link them in the description so you can go check out, because this guy's got no shortage of videos about lighting. So go check out his channel and watch those other videos that I'll give you at the end, right? But let's see what he has to say about chiaroscuro lighting. Most of all, let's see if I've been saying it right, if it really is chiaroscuro.
Today, we're going to show you how image makers use light and shadow to create visual depth and contrast. From paintings to the silver screen. This is What is Chiaroscuro?
Ah, I was so close. Chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro.
What is chiaroscuro?
Chiaroscuro. Okay.
When it comes to lighting, certain moments are best captured with brightness or darkness. And although those are certainly valid choices,
that was good editing.
When a director or cinematographer combines light and shadow, this high contrast lighting can add a third dimension to their films by way of chiaroscuro.
Chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro. Okay, we're going to skip over the origins of chiaroscuro and just go straight to cinema.
Film is also a two-dimensional medium. And it's no wonder that filmmakers have taken up the lessons of these Renaissance masters. You may have seen the star.
That is really cool. Just wanted to kind of point that out. How dope is that? Because film is, after all, a visual medium, right? That's pretty important, obviously. Very important aspect of film. It's really cool that filmmakers learned all of these various techniques. We'll get into it here in a couple of weeks when we go over color theory. Color theory plays a really big role in films, right? The colors that directors and cinematographers use to convey specific emotions that they want the audience to feel. This is something that they got from painters, right? This wasn't something that Hollywood created themselves. They learned this from years and years and years and years of painting and photography. So it's really cool that they learned those lessons from the people that came before them.
Sharp contrast used in popular films like Casablanca, Blade Runner, and The Tree of Life.
Always you wrestle inside me.
But chiaroscuro truly began with the German Expressionist movement in the 20s. in
There's
films
a
like
Doctor of Caligari. Oh, there it is, right there. Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari,
Dr. Caligari.
Nosferatu, Metropolis, and M. The lighting style of these films inspired generations of filmmakers.
Yeah, look at that. Oh, what's his name? Damn it. Oh my God. Come on. Tim Burton. Tim Burton, his films. I believe this is Edward Scissorhands. But you can see it in A Nightmare Before Christmas too. I almost said A Nightmare on Elm Street. The what's the word I'm looking for? The inspiration that Tim Burton got from the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is so obvious in almost every single movie he's ever made. I mean, look at the chiaroscuro lighting over here on the doorway. Again, there's the window on the wall, right? And you get the lighting going up the stairs, lighting on his back. You know, even the way that the stairs curve, the actual stairs themselves, everything is so surreal and abstract, just like Caligari. It really is crazy. Oh, there it says it right there underneath Edward Scissorhands, yeah.
Great emphasis on chiaroscuro was given in cinematography during the middle part of the 20th century. Directors
I know that movie. That was Addams Family.
like Orson Welles,
Yes.
Ingmar Bergman, and Carol Reed changed the way chiaroscuro added atmosphere to films, where post-war pessimism and moral ambiguity is reflected in both the visual style and the stories themselves.
There's that bringing up of moral ambiguity again. I haven't seen this movie yet. Funny that this pops up. I'm going to be watching this here soon. What was this? The Shape of Water. Yeah, I'm going to be watching this here soon because I'm writing a story, and this one seemed like a good inspiration for it. So,
In films that explore the darker side of human behavior. Without high contrast lighting, Colonel Kurtz's descent into madness wouldn't be so haunting.
Are you an assassin? I'm a soldier. You're neither.
oh, look at that. This was a great movie, man. This was 1812, I think it was. And this scene, look at that again when he's running through this destroyed city. It's so beautiful and haunting. Look at that. So crazy.
Lance Corporal Schofield's escape would not be so harrowing.
God save me, I'll finish it.
Oh, well. You can't beat this movie, man. That's a killer movie. Sin City. Perfect example of chiaroscuro lighting. Look at all this super bright lighting. Got headlights. Then, of course, you got the CGI, white blood. Everything is crazy there.
God save me, I'll finish it.
Sin City wouldn't be so gritty.
Care for a smoke?
Consider this moment from American Beauty and how the lighting anticipates a confrontation.
Where did you get that?
Oh, yeah. That lighting coming right out the window shadows him. I believe we're going to get this into a little bit later, and I don't know if I'm correct, so we'll find out if I'm wrong, if I'm just talking out my ass here in a few minutes. This is a type of chiaroscuro lighting called silhouette lighting, I believe. We'll figure it out. We'll see. But yeah, you can see how this makes him very ominous, right? Like, oh, fuck, he's pissed. Nobody sits in darkness like that unless they're pissed.
My job.
You don't lie to me. I saw you with him.
You were watching me?
Oh, this one's one of my favorites. Clockwork Orange. Very disturbing, but, you know, it's so cool to see this shit, your favorite movies, and then see the lighting. Very intense contrast here, right?
Look at how the lighting in this shot presents Alex and his droogs as
Yeah, it's menacing. Look at their shadows, how big they are.
Threatening menace.
It's
Or how Barry and Lena's postcard moment is captured in silhouette.
That was a good one. Wasn't that Punch Drunk Love? That was a pretty good one. That was an odd Adam Sandler one. But there's that silhouette lighting we're talking about. You can already kind of tell why it's called silhouette lighting.
Horror thrives.
Really good one. Awesome Jordan Peele movie, Us. I loved it. A lot of people didn't like that. I fucking love that movie. But yeah, look at that lighting. Same thing as Alex's Droogs, right? Lighting behind them, making their shadows appear long and menacing.
On chiaroscuro lighting. As Pennywise well
It
knows.
Follows. That was a good one.
Meet Pennywise.
Chiaroscuro lighting is centuries old, and there's a reason it's been used in countless works of art. Light mixed with dark.
Another
is
good one,
practically
Full Metal
elemental.
Jacket.
Hi, Joker.
Ugh.
It's good and evil, with us stuck in the middle.
And that one, of course. Everybody knows The Dark
out
Knight.
of some
That's a sick movie.
Misplaced sense of self-righteousness. And I won't kill you because you're just too much fun.
Keep chiaroscuro in
Ooh,
mind when planning your
That's
next
really
shoot.
good. I don't know what movie that is, but I feel like I've seen it before. But yeah, that lighting's really good too.
You can turn a simple set into something dynamic. You can create mood and atmosphere. You can echo complicated ideas like moral ambiguity. No matter the genre or the tone you're aiming for, chiaroscuro lighting can turn even the most typical shots into gold. As you enter the
All right. So that was Studio Binder. Make sure you go check out their videos. Awesome videos. Can't, say enough good things. They just do a really great job of explaining everything. All right, let's go back here. So that's chiaroscuro lighting. Chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro lighting. We're going to go with that. I might just mumble my way through it like chiaroscuro lighting. That's how I usually get through these difficult words. But so the point is to create that contrast. That contrast can be used to create a multitude of various different sensations or emotions. We watched in Clockwork Orange, it creates a menacing feel. In American Beauty, it creates a sense of there's about to be a conflict. In Nosferatu and various other horror movies, it creates a horror, what's the word I'm looking for? A horrific kind of atmosphere. It can be used to create a almost surreal or abstract atmosphere. In the case of like Tim Burton movies and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, it's regularly used to show moral ambiguity in the case of The Godfather and film noir. And yeah, just all kinds of different things you can show with that. But obviously, you want to have, when we are watching movies from a film theorist's viewpoint, looking for chiaroscuro lighting, we want to see it in a place where it makes sense, where that contrast in light it highlights an emotion in the scene that's important. If it doesn't do that, then that's not good. No good. No bueno. You done fucked it up, kid. All right, let's move on to low-key lighting, right? Okay, low-key lighting, well, opposite of high-key lighting. You can probably guess what it is, but we're going to go through it anyways. Emphasis of low-key lighting is on deep shadows, high contrast, and selective illumination. Now, that high contrast, you'll notice those words were regularly used with the chiaroscuro lighting, right? It's not the same thing, though. Not the same thing. We'll see some examples of it so you can visualize it. But from the videos that I watched, not the same thing, okay? The technique employs a hard key light with little or no fill light, leaving large areas of the image in darkness. Okay, so think of, and this is kind of why we went over chiaroscuro lighting. Chiaroscuro is very much kind of like the middle ground. It seems like, to me, anyways, from the videos I've watched, high key lighting, no shadows, chiaroscuro, high contrast, meaning use of shadows for a specific purpose. Low key lighting is almost entirely shadows except for the subject, right? And that's kind of what they're saying here. It employs a key light with little or no fill light. So it's the light on the subject, and that's more or less it. The effect creates a sense of drama, mystery, suspense, and danger, often used in fillers, film noir, and horror genres. Okay, so again, you are seeing the similarity with chiaroscuro lighting. It's used in film noir, thrillers, horror movies, right? Can create a sense of suspense, mystery. Chiaroscuro lighting could do the same thing, but it's still in its own category. So let's read a little bit about it so we can understand a little bit more, just like we did with chiaroscuro lighting. Low-key lighting is a type of lighting style used in photography, film, and television that accentuates shadows, high contrast, and dark tones. The visual aesthetic of low-key lighting is usually achieved by using hard sources or key lights with minimal to no fill light. Remember, the fill light is what you use to get rid of the shadows. So what is low lighting about? You want shadows, right? You want a lot of shadows too, way more than you're going to get with chiaroscuro. Okay, and you'll see that when we compare the two, right? Low-key lighting is often used in thrillers, dramas, and horror films because of its mysterious, dark, and dramatic mood the style creates. So it has high contrast, harsh shadows, deep dark tones, minimal highlights and mid-tones. That's a big difference with chiaroscuro lighting, ominous and dramatic mood. So with chiaroscuro, and they're going to talk a little bit about it, the chiaroscuro effect. Again, this is why I wanted to hit chiaroscuro before we hit the low-key lighting, because you kind of want to understand chiaroscuro before you understand low-key. But from my understanding, a big difference between the two that I've run into here is this right here: minimal highlights and midtones. So with chiaroscuro lighting, it's a big contrast between highlights and shadows. In this one, it's a lot of shadows, a lot of darkness, but very minimal highlights, right? Okay. The chiaroscuro effect. Although this lighting specifically pertains to photography and film, the elements of low-key lighting can be found in the art world as far back as the Renaissance through the chiaroscuro effect. Okay, see, now you know why we wanted to learn about chiaroscuro before we learned about low-key and low-key lighting. Chiaroscuro is the use of high contrast between light and dark, which can be found in various mediums from paintings to photography to film. Artists such as Rembrandt developed the technique in their paintings, which have gone to influence cinematographers and different techniques in filmmaking, such as Rembrandt lighting. We might get into that a little bit later in the video. As film evolved in the 40s and 50s, this lighting became a defining element of film noir. The black and white cinematography of film noir utilized this type of lighting to enhance the dramatic and mysterious tones of genre films. This video, by Now You See It, breaks down how the black and white low-key cinematography of film noir enhances the film storytelling. Yeah, so the case for black and white, I actually have this video saved for the color, I think. In any case, Now You See It is another really awesome YouTube film theory channel. Definitely go check them out and show them some love. And note how the shots covered in the video utilize shadows, contrast, and dark tones. All of these are characteristics of this lighting. What is low-key lighting evolved into as film continues to evolve into the era of color. The low-key lighting style that helped define film noir continued to influence future filmmakers, not only because of how this lighting looks, but because of how it feels. So, the purpose of low-key lighting. This is what we want, remember, as a film theorist or somebody who's critiquing and reviewing movies, this is what you want to pay attention to. Just as film noir utilized this high contrast lighting to enhance the mysteriousness of a scene or film, cinematographers recently have used it to accentuate the drama of the story. The harsh shadows and deep dark tones of low-key lighting can be found in thrillers, dramas, and horror. We brought in some of our, this is going over thing. Even though many of the shots have different frames, color temperatures, angles, and even genres, all utilizing this technique to enhance the mood of each scene. Contrary to the airy and cheerful mood of high-key lighting, low-key lighting brings out the more serious tones of a film. Whether that film is scary, suspenseful, mysterious, dark, or dramatic, this type of lighting underscores that serious tone. If your story has a more dramatic tone and calls for low-key light setup, here are a few tips for that, and then they go over to how to do the low-key lighting. I don't think that's the video. Now, we go over to a different channel, a smaller channel. I want to show the small channels love since I am also a small channel. We will keep this up here because I haven't watched this video yet. So we're going to learn this together, see if they give us some good information. This is, here, let's pop over to the YouTube screen. This is Harv Video Audio Stuff. Only got about 100,000 subscribers, so give them a like and check out their stuff. We'll click back on their channel, learn a little bit about them. Let's see how good this video is, if they can teach us something more about what we're looking for with low key lighting. All right.
Hello, Harv Video Audio Stuff, welcome back. Today for you guys, I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on how to light, expose and grade a moody, low-key scene and show you how to go from this to this.
Okay, so when you're thinking of chiaroscuro, right, you're thinking of really high contrast, but if you compare it, the shadows are a little bit less. Notice this contrast to like Rembrandt paintings. If we compare the two, those Rembrandt or those paintings that we were looking at earlier, I already forgot the guy's name. It's almost like what side of the face is lighted and not lighted are kind of reversed, right? You have the shadows on the side of the face opposite what the camera is looking at. The side of the face that is facing the camera would be lit up. When you're getting low-key lighting, I have noticed that it's the opposite, right? The purpose is to keep a large portion of what's happening in the scene dark and very moody, right? Compared to chiaroscuro lighting, where you would be pointing the light at this side of the face and keeping this side of the face almost pitch black, right? It's almost like chiaroscuro lighting is a more, I also noticed this too, a more, what's the word I'm looking for? Extreme variation of low-key lighting, right?
This is kind of a subjective topic because there isn't technically a wrong way of doing things, but hopefully you'll find some interesting tidbits in this video. And yeah, sit back and enjoy the ride. But I would encourage you to comment down below with your experiences because you know I love that we can collaborate and help each other to learn. Recently, I've seen some amazing examples of low-key in TV shows such as The Expanse, Altered Carbon, and in particular American Gods, which just looks stunning and like nothing else I've ever seen. Watching American Gods feels like a lighting masterclass. The way they've used powerful lighting to create silhouettes around the talent and the way they've used catch lights for the talent's eyes to really make them piercing is just inspiring. I was really interested to read that this series was actually filmed on Blackmagic cameras where I thought it would be Arri or Red. Anyway, needless to say,
I don't know what any of that means.
Definitely watch it. So I'll be taking...
But you can see through those scenes, let's just mute it and go through those scenes again. You can see how almost all of these scenes are dark and moody. Even this one, right? It's not the contrast. See, the contrast here between what's lit up and what isn't is not as extreme as chiaroscuro, right? There's far more darkness in this scene than in shadows than there would be in chiaroscuro. Oh. Had a cough. There's far more shadows in this scene than there would be in chiaroscuro lighting, if it was lit with chiaroscuro lighting, right? And the contrast isn't as extreme, especially on the subject, okay? Those are two big notable differences that I've seen between chiaroscuro lighting and low-key lighting.
Where I thought it would be Arri or Red. Anyway, needless to say, highly recommended. Definitely watch it. So I'll be taking inspiration from all of those shows in this video, in particular American Gods. What I'm looking for is that extreme contrast, super crisp and sharp look, and we're going to use highlights to our advantage. So let's get on with it. This is what I started with, just the overhead lights on in the room. To begin with, I decided to use a linear profile, in this case Cine 1, instead of a log profile, and I'll get to that later. The quality of light...
Yeah, don't know what any of that means. So We'll see if he explains it though. I'm interested.
It's pretty horrible and quite unflattering, so let's turn all the lights off and get lighting our subject. The first thing I did was add a hair light, and I used an Aputure LS Mini 20D. I also did some DIY diffusion on it by just taping some baking paper across the front of it. I made sure the baking paper was white instead of unbleached because I wanted to keep the light nice and cool looking.
See, these fucking cinematographers, man, this is why that really is a cool fucking job, man. You really have to have an eye for that kind of thing, and then have that practical knowledge of like, oh yeah, when I want to diffuse the light, I use unbleached baking paper, so it does this, that, and that. And it's like, who the fuck knows this and thinks of this? That is such obscure knowledge, but it's really cool. And I'm sure it plays a massive role on how the difference in the lighting, right? But it's just a very interesting knowledge set that most people don't have. Really interesting, really cool.
I then added what is effectively my key light, and in this case, it's on the far side of the face.
Okay, see what I was saying there? The far side of the face, remember that?
This really helps to accentuate the contrast in our scene and really makes our subject's silhouette pop. At this stage, you may want to add a fill light of some sort on the near side of her face. I tried using a variety of lights and they were all way too bright. I tried using the bounce side of a reflector, too bright. In the end, unbelievably, I ended up using a small sheet of paper just off scene. In the end, I couldn't resist the extreme contrast, so I went with the one without the bounce light. This is a really simple 2-light setup with one light behind and to the left and one behind to the right. As I mentioned, for the hair light, I'm using an Aputure LS Mini 20D, and for our main key light on the left, I'm using the Aputure C300. And of course, I'm pairing it with Aputure's Light Dome for really nice diffusion. My instinct when setting the focus point was to go for the near side eye because, well,
all of that equipment, I'm a huge gearhead for music. I love like interfaces, compressors, equalizers, all the outboard gear. Love that shit. That was the best part of working in a studio, was having a giant 64 fader mixing console in front of me. I will forever and always miss that and be excited when I see a picture of that. But when it comes to like the lighting, that shit just stresses me out. There's like so many different kinds of fucking lights and shit. I'm just like, oh, this is too much. Like, we need to get a professional. Have somebody who understands this do it, because fuck this.
That's just the instinct, and that's what we tend to always do. However, in this case, that doesn't make sense because there's so much contrast, you're not even going to see the focus point. It's a much better bet going for the offside eye because that's where our light is, and you'll notice that this is very much the fashion in many TV programs these days. I then switched over to a log profile because I thought I could better achieve what I was looking for, and looking at the histogram, this just shows you how useless they are when exposing this kind of scene. Most of our image is below 25%, and we can see any kind of highlight information is just creeping its way up. A waveform gives us way more useful information.
Any of that means.
In this case, we can see that the highlight areas of her face on the left side are up at 75%, and the shadow areas are sat at around 30%, which is going to be perfect. All of that information we saw below 25% in the histogram, we can see here is actually the background, and that is exactly where we want it. Right, we've got all our shots.
That's so crazy.
Now let's move.
Wild that they even have software that does that, man. Really interesting. So cool, man. These tools that, see, this is my kind of gear right here, right? Just basic mixing board right there, piano, that's all good stuff, you know. Got the guitars over here. That's the cool shit. When it comes to that lighting, that's way out of my depth. But whatever software he was just using right there, above my head.
Move things into editing so we can grade things. I'm going to use Final Cut, and I'm only going to use the stock plugins. So in theory, you could do the same thing. You could mimic exactly what I do in any editing program. Let's do it. The first thing I'm going to do is,
you know, we don't really need to watch this, but I'm going to watch this because this is very fucking interesting.
To drop the exposure slightly, and this is great when I have to do this in log because it means I've overexposed for my scene slightly, and it means that things are going to look slightly cleaner. I'm just using the color wheels function, which obviously Resolve has and Premiere Pro has, so that's no problem. It's starting to look good, but I really want things to be super contrasty, and I'm still seeing lots of information in the shadows. So let's add some curves. I really like spending a bit of time with the curves, working them, just seeing what detail I can bring out and really perfecting that image. Obviously in a shot like this, I'm going to be bringing the shadows down quite a bit, but take note, I've been quite delicate with the highlights. I want them to be really prominent, but I really don't want to lose detail and especially not clip any highlights. Lastly, I'm going to add a LUT because I've got one in mind and I know that Log loves LUTs. For this scene, I'm going to use the Triune Films Drive LUT because the palette of colours is beautiful. Personally, I really don't like using LUTs all the way at 100%. I like to dial it back to 50%, 75%, wherever it looks best. And there we have our transformed log image. Personally, I love it. If you're wondering why it looks so sharp, well, it's because I'm using the Sigma 50mm art. I've got a full opinion video coming for that lens, so definitely hit subscribe to catch that when it comes. If you want to add some fill light on the shadow area of her face, you can just use something like Color Correct Shape Mask from Core Melt. It's really simple to use, and obviously you can track the talent's face, which makes things really easy if your talent is moving in your scene. And that's it for now.
That's crazy. Man, so much detail in that and how he did it. I didn't understand what was happening there, but it was fucking dope. So,
what's up, my friends? Welcome back.
Channel a little bit. Make videos about video, gear, cameras, lenses, audio recording, guitars, and other things that interest me. Fucking A, guy. Fucking A. Look at him going at it. 6,000 views, 2.7 thousand views 7 days ago. So he's still going hard. Give this guy a subscribe and like. Go check out his channel. I'll have his channel linked in the description to the video. Let me save it real quick so we can throw it in there, because that's pretty... What is this? Oh, yeah, that's a book I was looking into getting. Yeah, because, yeah, that's a super cool channel that he's got going on here, man. A lot of good information, too. He looks like he knows what he's doing. So that was Harv Video / Audio Stuff. Let's go back over here. Okay, so that is low-key lighting, okay? And the big difference that I get from it, and you can correct me if you see something different there or if you know more about this subject, because again, I'm learning this with you. We're learning it together, being a couple dumbasses together and learning shit as we go, right? That's the whole point of this channel. The chiaroscuro lighting is much more centered on extreme contrast, and whereas the low-key lighting is much more centered on a dark moodiness. Contrast still plays a role, but it's almost like the role of the highlights and the shadows is almost kind of reversed in the two, right? Where low-key lighting is a lot more shadows and very specific highlights are being used on specific parts of the subject. And chiaroscuro lighting, it's the opposite, where the shadows are much less and they are what's being used to highlight instead of highlights, right? The light is placed in specific points to create shadows on a specific part of the subject, okay? Versus with low-key lighting, where it's the highlights are being kind of like, more shadows, less highlights for low-key lighting, more highlights, less shadows for chiaroscuro lighting. So there you go. Now we have silhouette or black lighting. Okay, so this was a tough one. I couldn't actually find a lot of information on this, and I wasn't sure if it was even a thing, because I figured maybe it was just something that no film school thought of, right? Or that what they think is a useful technique. But Studio Binder was not there with this kind of lighting. And it might be because, from what I did find, silhouette lighting seems to be almost a kind of chiaroscuro lighting, right? But let's read a little bit. The emphasis creates a stark outline of the subject with the background brightly exposed. Okay. The technique is achieved by placing a powerful backlight behind the subject with no key or fill lights in the front. So it creates pitch black subject with bright lights behind them. Pretty simple. Looks like a silhouette. And silhouette lighting or just black lighting. The effect isolates the subject, creating a sense of mystery, anonymity, or drama. The silhouette can be used to emphasize the subject's form or conceal their identity. Bert. Okay, let's read a little bit about it. This is from the Dutch Lady Designs. Okay. A silhouette lighting is a technique used to create contrast between light and dark areas of a scene, right? similar to that chiaroscuro, right? It is often used in photography, film, and theater to create a dramatic effect. It is also used in stage lighting to draw attention to certain elements of a performance. Silhouettes are created by having the light source behind the subject. And really, that's the important part to us. When the light source is behind the subject instead of to the front, your key lights and fill lights and all of this, right? It's just the backlight. That's all it is. So the subject, from the camera's point of view, is pitch black. Pretty easy to understand, right? This creates a stark contrast between light and dark, which can be used to great effect in creating dramatic compositions. The use of silhouettes can also be used to create a sense of mystery or suspense, as the viewer is unable to make out any details on the subject itself. And that's really, again, from the film theory perspective, that's really the most important thing, right? It creates that sense of mystery where we don't know exactly what's going on, right? The key element for creating great silhouettes is strong backlighting. You want your light source to be bright enough that it will overpower any other source of light in the scene so that it effectively turns your subject into a silhouette against the background. You also want your light source to be placed far enough away from your subject so that it doesn't appear too harsh or distracting. When using silhouettes in stage lighting, you want to make sure that you are using a color temperature that will draw attention to your subject without being too distracting or overwhelming. This is kind of an interesting point too. We do have a video that we're going to watch on silhouette lighting. And from the highlights that I've seen of the video, they do use some color lighting in there that has really cool effects to it. Cooler colors such as blues and greens can help create a more mysterious atmosphere, while warmer colors such as yellow and oranges can be used for more upbeat performances. That's very interesting. Okay, that's a good important thing to note, right? That almost adds a little bit of color theory. Well, it does. It adds color theory to lighting, which is interesting. Additionally, you may want to adjust your intensity levels depending on how much detail you want your audience to see in the shadowed areas of your scene. Silhouettes can add depth and drama to any type of production, whether it's for film, theater, or photography projects. By carefully considering both your lighting placement and color temperature when creating silhouettes, you can create stunning visuals with minimum effort. So there you have it. Easy write-up on silhouette lighting thanks to the DutchLadyDesigns.com. Now we're going to bounce back over to Aperture. Bit of a bigger channel, 370,000 subscribers. Let's give them a like. They're going to teach us how to light cinematic silhouettes, okay? So we're going to see some good examples, hopefully, in this video. Let's check it out.
What is going on, guys? Ted here with the A-Team, and today we're going to talk about silhouettes and 4 different...
I remember this guy's video. This guy, very energetic, which I like. So...
ways you can use them in your next movie. Today we are here with David Weldon. David Weldon is an awesome DP that has worked with artists like Taylor Swift and Joseph Kahn. He shot commercials for Audi, Nike, Ford. Really, he's done it all. And today we're going to talk about 4 different ways you can apply silhouette lighting into your creative filmmaking. So, David, what are the 4 types of ways that we're going to go over today?
First types are going to be a sunset, daytime kind of vibe. Then we're going to jump into a night interior that's more of a cold, bluer kind of feel to it. Then we'll go to something a little warmer in the tungsten kind of realm. And then we'll do something that's kind of a dance.
Kind of a music video vibe.
Yeah, a little bit of a music video vibe.
Interesting.
Right, so David, let's jump right into it. What was that?
So there's just 4 different ways in which they can use silhouette lighting, which is really cool, right? And that's important to us from the film theory perspective because we want to know what instances are going to be using this kind of lighting. And so when we see it in a movie, we can judge, is that the appropriate way to use this lighting, right?
First silhouette that we did.
That first silhouette was a day interior silhouette. It was sunset vibe coming through the window, just trying to feel warm and make you feel like you're at home. First light was our practical, which was a floor lamp. We just had a single 60-watt bulb in it. Then we just tried to shape that light a little bit by dimming it down with a little hand dimmer that you can plug in line with the light. And then we put some black wrap on top of it so it wouldn't spill all over. The second light, we're talking about the background light. So with that, we wanted to create some visual separation between our talent that was sitting on the couch. So what we did is we took a 120 120D, kept it daylight, put a mini light dome with a little bit of diffusion on it to spread that light out and kind of just make it feel less sourcey. Put the egg crate inside of it, put it up high, and just kind of raked it across that wall. So our third light ends up being our key light, which is kind of a back key kind of feel to it. It's coming from outside, it's going through the window. We took a 120D with a Fresnel attachment to make it as hard as possible, and then put a little bit of CTS in front of it. I think we were at a half CTS, almost a full CTS, pounding right onto our talent, hitting right onto his face that's closest to the window to kind of shape him. Now the last light we did was a little fill light, so we wanted to bring up the image. Even though we're in a silhouette, you still want to bring up enough light in the room so that the camera's still reading something. So we put a 120D, bounced it right into a 4x bounce that was just out of camera inside the room, and we left it daylight, so there's a little bit of color contrast. You've got all this warm coming in, and we some cool on the inside. Maybe it's a television, or maybe it's something like that in the room.
So right on. So just adding a little bit to bring those shadows up. Now let's check out some of that lighting right now.
Look at that. I love how they do that. Add the lighting little piece by little
piece. Moving on
piece.
to our second type of silhouette. Now,
So that was daylight, right? That's what they were going for there?
what type of silhouette is that?
This was a moonlight silhouette. It was a cooler blue silhouette, just a different feel than what you might see. So we've got a 120D, and we actually bounced it this time, kept it daylight into a 4x card, and then we made a book light out of it. So we put a 4x full grid to kind of knock that light down and spread it out as much as possible so it wasn't as hard. I personally like a softer feel in the moonlight. It fills out the entire space.
That's
makes
crazy.
it feel like it's nighttime, like you're going to go to bed.
Again, the techniques they use for this is so fucking wild, man. Just blows my mind. Really entertaining to watch this. I would never want to do it. I would never ever want to have all that knowledge in my fucking head about, yeah, we got this fucking bounce and then this fucking piece of parchment paper and we put them exactly 10 feet away from each other and then at this angle and that and this and the other thing, and then this fucking guy has to stand on his head and wiggle his toes, and it's like, fuck, man, that's a lot of shit. I'm glad you have to do it and not me, but it's really cool to watch. Really interesting to hear them talk about it.
The second light we used was a string light in the background. We just had these little string lights to kind of feel like the back porch, kept them warm so they would separate from the blue that's coming in from that moon as well.
Just adding a little visual interest out that
visual interest, yeah.
Right on. And then finally for our third light, now we did two types of this third light.
Yeah, we did two different ways. It's still a fill light, but we did one with a television gag. We used the 120D Mark II so that we could actually have the TV effect, so we could pop in and out and change the framing of it so we had our talent kind of look like they were watching a movie. And then we just turned that off and had it look like they were having a conversation, which is a straight fill light bouncing into the card, keeping it all daylight as well.
So let's go to our third lighting setup now. Our third lighting setup.
And that definitely, what are we at? 336. Definitely, so compare that. That's the nighttime silhouette. And then here was this daytime silhouette. There it is right there. With the additional fill. So daytime silhouette and then your nighttime silhouette. Here we go. Okay. Let's check out. I forget what the third kind was, but let's see.
It's warmer. You're going to think that I'm talking about the sun, but it almost more warmer thing was to try to make it. And this way we kind of went the opposite color temperature we went. In the previous, we were at 3400 against daylight, which daylight's normal into the card, keeping it all daylight as well.
So let's go to our third lighting setup. Now, our third lighting setup we did in the same scene, right?
We did the same scene, just a different color temperature we went. In the previous, we were at 3400 against daylight, which daylight's normally 5600. And this way we kind of went the opposite. So we went with a 5200 Kelvin on the camera, and then we went tungsten with pretty much everything, was to try to make it feel different.
Right on. So now if that second setup was moonlight, and we were getting that super kind of cool moonlight, in this case we were going for a warmer moonlight.
Yeah, it's warmer. You're going to think that I'm talking about the sun, but it almost more warmer neutral in a sense.
Totally different type of silhouette, and all we did was just change the white balance on the camera and gel the lights a little differently.
Easy.
All right, let's check that recap.
That's so different.
Now,
Wow.
for our fourth lighting silhouette, what was our first light that we used?
The first light we used was a 120D with a mini light dome. We actually took the egg crate off, double diffused it, and let it play
Egg
onto
crate.
the back wall and on our talent. So it was directly above her, shadowing her, creating that silhouette and creating some separation on the walls.
Why did you take the grid off?
The grid ended up controlling it just so it hit her and it looked pretty. And I started to look at it and go, well, now I gotta light the wall. I've got to just make it separate somehow. And instead of adding more light, just use a light that's there and peel it off.
Now, talking about our second light, you made kind of a rig here. What was that?
Yeah, we made a little bit of a helicopter rig. So we took one stand, piece of pipe, and we actually attached two quasar tubes, two 4-footers, left them daylight, and just taped them to the stand. The idea was to spin both tubes around. We ended up turning one of them off because it ended up being too much light, and it allowed it so that we could just put a little light that would pass across her, light up her face, light up her body, and as my gaffer would spin it, he'd spin it real fast when it was off her, and then slow it down as it came across her, just to kind of make it feel pretty and soft.
Now, the last
That's
thing we did, I
cool.
saw something on the floor. What was that?
Yeah, so we're shooting in an environment that has a gray floor. You know, you think about if you're going to add some, bounce into something, you might put a bounce card or a gray card, something like that. So of getting a little bit of kick back into her that just wasn't pleasing when you wanted to go silhouette. So we put some 4x floppies on the ground just to keep that kick from bouncing back into her.
Let's check out that lighting.
So I did want to point out in this video, they're calling that the key lighting, which I guess it is, right? It's the main light on the subject, which would constitute key lighting, but it's a backlit key lighting. It's above and behind her to create this silhouette sense, right? That's that helicopter lighting.
Alrighty, guys, so there you have it. There's your episode on...
So 4 different kinds of silhouette lighting there. They had a tungsten, which is a cooler nighttime, sunset daytime, cooler nighttime, tungsten, which is a warmer nighttime, and then their music video lighting, which was kind of seemed more like the classical silhouette. I noticed when they're talking back here, see this image behind all of this? That's Exorcist, the Exorcist movie. Perfect example of silhouette lighting where you got the subject right here and the light. You got practical lighting, which we're going to get into that in a minute, coming out of the windows. And then you got this lighting on this fog right here in between him and the window. And very, very, great use of what they're using. This is they're calling this cooler nighttime backlit, but this is that very classical backlit silhouette lighting that you see a bunch of examples of if you look up silhouette lighting on the internet. So really cool. What exactly is Aputure? Let's take a look into their channel. Cinematography, gear, and content. Aputure was founded in 2005. Inspired photographers and filmmakers wanted to create high quality content but struggled with steep costs, yada yada. As a part of the creative community, Aputure continues to develop for the ever-expanding needs of budding artists. Each member of our team has felt determined to create professional-grade equipment at an affordable price. The first company to accessible with quality and functions. So this is the actual camera company, Aputure Lighting. Okay, this is all about lighting. How to light in a car. The cinematography of The Last of Us. Ooh, that's pretty neat stuff. And this is talking about some of their equipment. And this is some of their cinematography stuff, which that's pretty cool. I'll probably want to subscribe to these guys just for the cinematography stuff so we can hop back into that at a later date. But because we'll be talking a lot about cinematography when we get into doing all our film reviews, right? But what I wanted to swap over to for a split second is talk about some other film lighting techniques. We got our 4 main types of film lighting. Okay, high key lighting used for bright, optimistic, joyful scenes, minimal shadows used to keep everything bright and very detailed. Typically used in comedy, sitcoms, anywhere where you want that bright, optimistic feel. Okay, in between, the next step would be chiaroscuro setting or lighting, which is much more focused on creating a contrast between shadows and bright lights or highlights. on the subject, right? So used, oh, man, you know, coughing kills me. So anyways, chiaroscuro lighting used to create contrast. That contrast is used to create a sense of moral ambiguity, a sense of potential conflict, a potential sense of danger, a sense of potential danger, typically used in film noir, detective movies, and sometimes in horror and thriller movies. But typically, I had a point there that I wanted to make, or used to create a abstract feel too, which, you know, you could see in Tim Burton movies and the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, right? Creates a very abstract, surrealist kind of feel. Okay, the next step up, the opposite of high key lighting, right, would be low key lighting, which is used to create a very dark and moody atmosphere. Again, increased use of shadows and a smaller use of highlights to highlight just the subject and create a very moody, dark atmosphere and feelings of fear, terror, danger, drama, seriousness, heaviness, right? All those are important aspects of low-key lighting. I need a Tums. I'm so excited about all this fucking awesome lighting that we're talking about. Give me heartburn. Okay. And then our fourth style lighting, silhouette or black lighting, which is, funny enough, what's happening right here, right? This is a good example of it. See, everybody's turned into a silhouette right here. Lighting, mostly just backlighting, very little key lighting, almost no fill lighting whatsoever. If they use it, it's a very minimal amount. Those examples that we saw in that video did add a little bits of practical lighting just for the sake of the scene, right? So you would have, you know, they're filming people in their living room. People in the living room are going to have practical lights around them. We'll get into practical lighting here in a minute so we understand what that word means. But black lighting or silhouette lighting is used to turn the subject into a silhouette using a very high-powered backlight, excuse me, okay? So that creates a sense of mystery and a sense of ambiguity or anonymity for the subject, right? So you're hiding the subject, hiding their intentions and their motivations, that kind of thing, right? Okay, and so those are 4 main kinds of lighting. We're going to get into 12 other film lighting techniques, and these are just techniques. These are different types of lighting that you're going to see in a film. So 1, the key light, right? That key light, the main light pointed at you. I kind of talked about this earlier in the stream. Okay, so notice we had high key lighting and low key lighting. Okay, that doesn't mean like low key, right? Like down low, like low key. I kind of like that. No, that's slang, means something completely different. I'm only saying that because when I first started looking into this, that's what I thought it meant. I was like, low key lighting means low key, right? Like it's on the down low, right? And high key lighting means high key. It's really high. It made sense, right? That's not what that meant. No. Key lighting is actually the main light here. The key light is also known as the main film light or of the scene or subject. This means it's normally the strongest type of light in each scene or photo. Even if your lighting crew is going to go for complicated multi-light setup, the key light is usually the first to be set up. So the key light is your main light. Doesn't always mean it's facing your subject, as it says right here. You can place your key light anywhere from the side or behind your subject to create a darker mood. Just avoid placing it near or right beside the camera, as this will create a flat or direct lighting for your subject. That's what the very first video that we watched on high key lighting, that's what I was trying to emphasize. When you place that key light directly right beside the camera or near the camera, right? That guy had his camera and then he had it right with it, right behind it, and it created a very flat image, if you remember that. That's what they're talking about there. But key lighting is the main lighting for your scene. And when they mean high key lighting and low key lighting, they don't mean low lighting and high lighting, although that is the end result is lots of light versus little light. High key means your key light is bright. Lots of key light. Key lighting is there for just about everything. Lots of key lighting and lots of film lighting, but high key means your key light, your main light, is high. It's really bright. Whereas low key lighting means your key lighting, your main light, is very low. Not a lot of it. Okay. So that's what key lighting is. The key light is your main light. And high key light is a bright key light. Low key light is not a lot of key lighting, dark lighting, right? And then we've already heard this term, your fill lighting. As the name suggests, this technique is used to fill in and remove dark, shadowy areas. This, you'll understand because we talked about this when we're talking about high key lighting. The whole point is to remove shadows from the room. Like I said, fill lighting would be for that exact purpose. You aim it at the shadows to get rid of the shadows. That's what fill lighting is for, to remove shadowy areas. It is noticeably less intense and placed in the opposite direction of the key light. I'm pretty sure I said that earlier in the stream, right? I'm positive that I told you this already. See, I kind of know some things, all right? I'm not entirely fucking stupid. I'm mostly stupid, but not entirely. I know a few things. Fill lighting, you're going to be a lot of times placing it in opposite directions to your key light to add more dimension to your scene. Because the aim of fill lighting is to eliminate shadows, it is advisable to place it a little further and or diffuse it with the reflector. I don't know about this reflector nonsense, because I just don't know what it is. They're probably right. I just have no idea how to use it. To create softer light that spreads out evenly. All right. Many scenes do well with just key and fill lighting, as they are enough to add noticeable depth and dimension to any object. And I don't know how long these videos are. We don't.
Hello
Yeah,
there.
see, these are
Welcome
3-minute videos. This whole webpage will be linked in the description, and you can definitely go over it yourself so you understand it a little bit more. It'll be in the description to my YouTube video. So if you're interested in watching all these YouTube videos and learning more about this, then hit it up, man. Hit it up. Third is backlighting. We already know about that because we talked about silhouette lighting, right? This was another name for, if we pop back over here, black lighting, which I'm pretty sure they meant backlighting, not black lighting, because we know what a black light is, not the same thing as a backlight. Silhouette lighting would be another name for backlighting. Backlighting is used to create a three-dimensional scene, which is why it is also the last to be added into a three-point lighting setup. A three-point lighting setup is your key light, your fill lights, and your backlight. This also faces your subject a little higher from behind so as to separate your subject from the background. Okay, remember the backlight comes from behind, hence the backlight. So when you're creating that silhouette lighting, right, no key light, no fill lights, just your backlight, right? And again, my lighting setup isn't really a fill light right here. Okay, this almost would be like more of a key light. It's almost like I got two key lights pointed at me, which is why I got some weird shadow shit going on. And that's okay because I'm creating a mood, all right? I'm trying to be moody with it. I'm trying to be avant-garde. Give me a fucking break, right? And I'm not saying I'm successful at it, but, it is what it is. Don't really have any fill lighting in this room, but I'm just pointing out certain shit to kind of help you visualize it. You know what I'm saying? So, as with fill lighting, you'll want to also diffuse your backlight so it becomes less intense and covers a wider area of your subject. For example, for subject mid shots, remember that what a mid shot is, right? Mid shot, I believe, below the chest and up, right? Or that might be a mid close-up is shoulders and up, right? You'll want to also light up the shoulders and base of the person's neck instead of just the top of their head. This technique can also be used on its own without the key and fill lights if you're aiming for a silhouette, okay? So backlighting is literally the light behind the subject, and when all you have is backlighting, you have silhouette lighting. Side lighting. Needless to say, side lighting is for illuminating your scene from the side, parallel to your subject. It is often used on its own or with just a faint fill light to give your scene a dramatic mood, or what's referred to as chiaroscuro lighting. To really achieve this effect, your side light should be strong so as to create strong contrast and low-key lighting that reveals the texture and accentuates the contours of your subject. When used with a fill light, it's advisable to lessen the fill light's intensity to of that side light to keep the dramatic look and feel of the scene. So side lighting, often used in chiaroscuro lighting, according to Adorama.com, which is a cinematography website, I believe, if I remember when I first added this. Adorama types of lighting, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know exactly what, but I'm going to link this in the description, right? So you can look into this for yourself, right? So side lighting that is used for illuminating your scene from the side, okay? And often used in chiaroscuro lighting, right? Which I don't know how true that claim is or not. I'm going to go with it because, hey, it's not like I've been chiaroscuro lighting since I was a fucking baby or nothing. I don't know enough about it to challenge if that's real or not. But, you know, you can look into it a little bit on your own. You have a whole bunch of videos that are going to be in the description of this video if you want a little bit of more information on it. We are just getting an understanding of all these various different types of lighting, whether or not, you know, side lighting is often used in chiaroscuro lighting. It could be, it could not be. They say it is. I don't know if that's true or not because I don't know enough about this subject. So take it for what it is. Side lighting is illuminating your scene from the side, right? Practical lighting. So we've talked about this. We heard this one too, pretty easy one. Practical lighting is the use of regular working light sources like lamps, candles, or the TV. Remember they mentioned practical lighting when they talked about the Christmas lights behind the window in that one video. That was practical lighting. And the lamp sitting to the side of the couple on the couch, that was practical lighting. Practical lighting is any kind of light source that you would see in a practical setting. These are usually intentionally added by set designers or lighting crews to create cinematic nighttime scenes. Oh, okay. They may sometimes be used to also give off subtle lighting for your subject. Practical lights are not always easy to work with, as candles and lamps are usually typically not strong enough to light up a subject. Did they say usually typically? No, they didn't. I did. I just added more or less the same word twice. That's redundancy. A hidden supplementary motivated light, more on that later, may be used, or dimmers can be installed in lamps so the light's intensity can be adjusted. We actually saw them use a couple different crazy ass techniques for that when we were seeing them light that scene, right? Again, that's like obscure knowledge that I have no idea about. You need to talk to professionals about that shit, right? Which is why I give you those channels. If you're like, this is exciting you, you're one of these dudes who sees this lighting shit and you're just like, oh my God, I'm getting a chubby. Cool, bro. That's awesome. You can start with a whole bunch of the videos that I gave you, right? So, a couple more techniques. Bounce lighting. We heard them talk about this a little bit. I have no idea. I'm learning this with you. It sounds like, we're going to see if I'm correct here. It sounds like bounce lighting is when you have a light source, shine it at a material that bounces that light onto the scene. So we'll see if I got that right or if I'm just being a fucking moron, okay? Bounce lighting is about literally bouncing the light from a strong light source towards your subject or scene using a reflector or any light-colored surface such as walls or ceilings. I'm going to say that's a win for me. Yep, boom, touchdown. I figured it out. I know what I'm talking about. I'm not that stupid. Doing so creates a bigger area of light that is more evenly spread out. Okay, so that's the whole point. I wouldn't have been able to tell you that, though. I have no reason why they do bounce lighting, but that's why. To create a bigger area of light that is more evenly spread out. If executed properly, bounce lights can be used to create a much softer key, fill, top, side, or backlight. Usually if you don't have diffusers or a softbox. Okay, so if diffuser used to soften the light, you can also soften the light using bounce lighting. For all you little lighting whizzes out there. Soft lighting. We've heard people talk about this a little bit. I don't have no idea. I would assume that it's the opposite of hard lighting. Right. Makes sense. I don't think that's too crazy of a jump to make. Soft light doesn't refer to any lighting direction. Okay, so backlight, key light, side light, fill light, all had direction aspects to them, right? Soft light seems like it's different. It is a technique nonetheless. Cinematographers make use of soft lighting even when creating directional lighting with the techniques above, right? Like they said earlier here, bounce lighting can be used to soften it up, right? For both aesthetic and situational reasons, to reduce or eliminate harsh shadows, create drama, replicate subtle lighting coming from outside, or all of the above. Okay, so soft lighting is more flattering on human subjects. The soft quality of the light minimizes the appearance of shadows, wrinkles, and blemishes. use soft lighting for beautification. Okay, so that's really the sentence that we're kind of looking at, right? Again, I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not learning this shit so I can go out and make my fucking Citizen Kane Magnus opus. Yeah, all right. I'm doing this because I want to learn how to what's the word I'm looking for here? How to interpret these different aspects of filmmaking so that I'm better at film theory, film critique, film reviewing, right? And that's the purpose that I'm bringing you along for this, doing the live stream, so you can learn this shit with me if you enjoy film reviews, or if you have a favorite film reviewer and you've been wondering is that motherfucker really lying to me? Is he really good at film critique? Okay, you can learn up a little bit about it and know for sure. So what we care about is soft lighting is used to minimize shadows and beautification purposes, particularly of a human subject, right? That's all we really care about. How they do soft lighting. Hey, there's this guy again from Aperture, right?
Ever wonder why?
Yeah, Aperture. That's that guy we watched earlier, right? The super energetic dude. I do like his videos. Definitely go check out his channel if you enjoy this lighting stuff, right? If it's making you super excited, you're right. I'm in Disneyland with this lighting, Tony. It's so awesome. Cool. If it's your thing, then got to go hit that channel up. So we talked about soft lighting, hard lighting. Okay, so if soft lighting is for beautification, I'm assuming that hard lighting isn't for uglification, right? I don't know if that's a word, but I don't know if anybody really purposely wants to make anything ugly. Maybe, right? Like a horror movie monster, you would want that to be pretty fucking ugly. Yeah, that's kind of the point of a monster. I don't know. Let's see. Hard lighting, I'm assuming it's for like harshness, to make a subject seem harsh, nitty gritty, super detailed, maybe, or maybe really heavy in shadows. Let's see. Let's check it out. Hard lighting can be sunlight or a strong light source. It's usually unwanted, but it certainly has cinematic benefits. You can create hard lighting with direct sunlight or a small, powerful light source. Despite it creating harsh shadows, hard lighting is great for drawing attention to your main subject or to an area of the scene, highlighting your subject's contour and creating a strong silhouette. Ah, okay, so hard lighting is lighting that creates heavy amounts of shadows. Not typically used, like I said, right? I kind of guessed right. I don't know. I'm going to give Tony a win. Tony's 10 for 0 now. All right, I'm balling right now. Not really wanted because it kind of uglifies stuff, but there is moments where you would want hard lighting, right? It creates harsh shadows, great for drawing attention to a subject and creating silhouettes, right? So when you're doing the backlight to create a silhouette of your subject, using hard lighting would create a much brighter contour around your silhouette. You see what I'm saying? You got the silhouette, the shadow of your subject. Obviously, you can't have that silhouette if it doesn't have a light around it, right? That's what the backlight's for, to create that light behind it, that outline of your silhouette. A hard light creates a really hard outline of your silhouette. Soft lighting would create less of an outline, I'm assuming, right? That sounds like what they're saying there, right? Correct me if you think I'm wrong. Hard lighting emphasizes changes in contour, shape, and texture. Use hard lighting to create an intense look. Okay, fair enough. We didn't hear hard lighting used a lot in any of the videos that we watched or any of the techniques that we described, but it is a thing. It's a technique. I got nasty human noises I'm about to... So I'm going to mute you. Okay. High key. We already talked about high key. What do they have to say about it? High key refers to a style of lighting used to create a very bright scene that is visually shadowless, often close to overexposure. Lighting ratios are ignored, so all light sources would have pretty much the same intensity. Ah, see, we didn't know that. This technique is used in many movies, TV sitcoms, commercials, and music videos. Remember, it's very common in comedies, right? So there's an example of high key lighting. What video did they pop up? Just for shits and giggles. Cinematic J. Okay, don't know much about that channel. I am going to run through this. We seen this video for Loki, right? We watched this fucking video. Look at that. What was this guy's name? Harv Video and Audio. Definitely check his channel out. He's got a lot of good shit to say about lighting. Low-key lighting, we already learned about it. Being the opposite of high-key, low-key lighting for a scene would mean a lot of shadows and possibly just one strong key light on the source. The focus is on the use of shadows and how to create to create mystery, suspense, and drama for a scene or character instead of the use of lighting, which makes it great for horror and thriller films. Okay, we kind of knew that. Here's one that a term we did not run into yet. This is a new one for us, okay? Motivated lighting. Haven't heard this one yet. Have no idea what it is, so I'm learning it with you. Motivated lighting is used to imitate a natural light source. Ah, okay. So whereas practical lighting would be a natural light source. No, maybe, okay. Such as sunlight, moonlight, well, and street lamps. I don't know if a street lamp is considered a natural light source. So if it includes street lamps, then they don't mean natural like sunlight and moonlight. Although they do say both of them right there. So I'm confused. I don't know if that would include candles and the lights in the room, or if that would just be practical lights. I don't know. Let's read. It's also the kind of lighting that enhances practical lights. Okay, so it's not practical lights. Should the director or cinematographer wish to customize the intensity or coverage of the latter using a separate light source? To ensure that your motivated lighting looks as natural as possible, several methods are used, such as the use of filters to create window shadows and the use of colored gels to replace the warm, bright yellow light coming from the sun or the cool, faint bluish light of the moon. So, use motivated lighting when you want to replicate a specific light source's quality of light. Okay, that's the sentence that I needed. Motivated lighting is when you're using stage lighting to imitate a practical light source or a natural light source like the sunlight, the moonlight, lamps, candlelight, whatever. You're not using the actual light from those things. Otherwise, it would be practical lighting. Instead, you are using stage lighting to mimic it, to imitate it. And that would be motivated lighting. Okay, interesting. Ambient lighting is our last one. Didn't run into this one either. I don't think we did. We might have. I don't know. I don't remember. I know we didn't say anything about motivated lighting, but we did. We might have heard some about ambient lighting. This one's kind of, everybody's heard of ambient lighting, right? Using artificial light sources is still the best way to create a well-lit scene that's closely similar to or even better than what we would see in real life. However, there's no reason not to make use of ambient or available lights that already exist in your shooting location, maybe sunlight, moonlight, street lamps, or even electrical store signs. When shooting during the day, you could always do it outdoors and make use of natural sunlight and supplement the scene with a secondary light for your subject. Early in the morning and late in the afternoon or early evening are great times for shooting outdoors if you want soft lighting. The only downside is the intensity and color of the sunlight are not constant. Ambient lighting is used when you want to illuminate your subjects without worrying about a specific style or quality of light. Ambient lighting is a relatively universal light source that evenly illuminates whole environments or scenes. Okay, so a light source that's naturally there, like the sun. Okay, fair enough. So there's a whole bunch, not a whole bunch, but a little bit more that this article covers, like the direction of your lights, the intensity, softness and hardness, all that good stuff, right? And then there's some really awesome examples of lighting in all these various kick-ass movies like Sicario, Revenant, both dope ones. Blade Runner was dope too, original Blade Runner. This whole article and all of its videos, which is an awesome article by Adorama.com, again, will be linked in the description to this YouTube video, right? So there's a couple other videos that we're probably not going to get to in this this stream, so I did want to mention them and then let you know that they will be in the not the comment section, I just said it, the description of the YouTube video. Down below will be a link to another Studio Binder. Let's pop it up. Studio Binder motivated lighting example. So here's will be a good example for that motivated lighting we're talking about, using stage lights to imitate natural lighting, motivated lighting. A whole 5-minute video by that Studio Binder. That'll be in the description, so check that out if you want more explanation on motivated lighting. And then Roger Deakins and the Art of Practical Lighting. So this will be use of practical lighting, again, by Studio Binder. 5-minute video on how to use practical lighting and some good examples in movies of that. That'll be linked in the description too, so check that out. And then The Ultimate Guide to Cinematic Lighting, Part 2, how to light subjects and locations. That'll be linked in the description because that's a 23-minute video and we're not going to even touch on it. Instead, we're going to watch The Ultimate Guide to Cinematic Lighting, Part 1, Types of Light and Gear Explained. And we're not going to get into the gear. This is lighting gear and equipment here at the end. We're only going to watch about, into the lighting terms, right? Because I think the terms, if I'm not mistaken, kind of goes over what we already know. We're just going to watch about 8 minutes of this video just to get Studio Binder's what's like an overview of everything that we learned, right? Just to kind of burn it into your brain. So this is just a brain burner. Check it out.
Films are made up of sequences. Sequences are made up of scenes. And scenes are made up of shots.
That's a kill.
In previous episodes, we covered camera movement, editing techniques, and composition. Today, we'll focus on lighting fundamentals, from different types and qualities of light to essential lighting terms and gear.
And then there was light.
This is episode 12 of The Shot List. Cinematic Lighting, Part 1. Hit subscribe and enable notifications to get all future episodes of The Shot List. At the end of the video, we'll explain how you can download your own cheat sheet for everything we're about to cover.
Let there be light. Ah, my eyes!
Gotta throw in an advertisement. Otherwise we wouldn't have YouTube. Okay.
Lighting is one of the most important elements of filmmaking. More than just illumination, lighting itself plays a massive role in visual storytelling. Lighting can help determine the mood of your scene.
What would that be? Right. Silhouette lighting right there. Perfect version of silhouette lighting.
Provide insight into a character and guide a viewer's eye. On set, these decisions are made primarily by the director of photography and the gaffer, who is the head lighting electrician on the crew. Once a lighting plan has been decided by the DP, the gaffer executes it by obtaining the necessary lights and gear and overseeing the setups. In part 1 of this video, we'll cover the lighting fundamentals. In part 2, we'll dive into how to light subjects and their surroundings. Before you begin setting up lights, it's important to understand the different forms light comes in.
Explain it all to me, now!
All light can be split into 2 categories, natural and artificial. Natural light is any light that occurs naturally, like sunlight, moonlight, and firelight.
Again, really good example of silhouette lighting right there. There was a couple different examples.
Artificial light is everything else. Man-made light powered by electricity. From there, we can branch out into additional categories. Ambient lighting refers to any lights that are on location which the crew didn't bring.
Okay.
This includes street lamps, neon signs, or the moon. Practical lighting refers to any light source that can be seen in the frame, whether it be ambient or placed there by a gaffer.
Oh, okay.
Motivated
Interesting.
lighting.
That's very different than the definition we had earlier, which was just practical lighting is just candle lights, yada yada, lamps, things that you would normally use in a setting. This says practical lighting is anything in the scene.
Means that there is a logical or reasonable justification for the light in a scene. Often, practical lights exist simply to justify or motivate the light. To be able to work with light, cinematographers also need to understand its properties. For example, how does one measure light? Lumens is a measurement of how much light a source produces. Lux, or foot candles, measures how much of that light hits the subject, otherwise known as incidental light. Reflective light is the amount of light that reaches the camera. The amount of light is dependent on both the strength of the source and its position in relation to the subject.
Interesting. Okay.
As soon as light leaves the source, it begins to lose intensity. This is called light fall-off, and we can predict and account for this loss using an equation called the inverse square law. The intensity of light is equal to 1 over the distance squared. Basically, this means that every time you double the distance away from the source, the light is reduced by 75%. Another aspect of light that cinematographers measure is the color temperature, which is measured in thermodynamic units called kelvins. Daylight is bluer than most artificial lights at about 5600 Kelvin. Daylight can also be imitated by artificial light sources with the same temperature. Tungsten lights are a common artificial source with a color temperature of about 3200 Kelvin, though this can vary based on the source. Mixing these two light sources, therefore, can add a variety of color to your shot, with tungsten lights adding orange and daylight adding blue. For a thorough explanation on color temperature, check out our video linked below.
Yeah, so very, very cool how they use the temperature of the light to essentially create a contrast there that dives into color theory quite a bit. And we'll learn color theory a little bit more 2 weeks from now, 2 Fridays from now.
Once you understand your light sources, you'll need to know some basic concepts and terminology. To the uninitiated, hearing cinematographers talk about lighting can sound like a foreign language. Let's look at some of the most commonly used terms on set. Exposure is the amount of light that reaches the sensor or film stock. In previous videos, we explained the mechanisms that determine the exposure: the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. The aperture is an adjustable mechanism that determines how much light enters the lens, and the various sizes are measured in f-stops. Each f-stop either doubles the amount of light.
F-stops. So this is what that first video was talking about, right? Stops, 1 to 2 stops below. Okay.
Or reduces it by half.
Look at that. We're turning into fucking light experts over here.
T-stops are another common setting in cinema lenses to measure exact...
Okay, I'm completely fucked up again. Now we have 2 different kinds of stops. I have no idea what's going on.
How much light actually hits the sensor. All cinematography is a balance between light and shadow, and one of the ways this relationship is expressed is called the contrast ratio. This is a shorthand for how we measure the difference.
So, this would be a good example of chiaroscuro lighting. Again, I believe this is Sin City again.
Between light and shadow.
Love that fucking car, by the way. God, it's a beautiful car.
Shadow in 2 areas of an image, usually between the 2 sides of a subject's face, or between the subject and the background.
That was good silhouette lighting. Here's really good, high-key lighting. Yep.
High-key lighting is a term that expresses a low contrast ratio, where the background and the subject are lit evenly with minimal contrast. Low-key lighting, on the other hand, uses a high contrast ratio, where the difference between light and shadow is much larger, with maximum contrast. Both high and low-key lighting are used in a variety of genres to evoke specific moods and atmospheres. Overall, high-key lighting is used for brighter, happier scenes, while low-key lighting is often used for darker, dramatic scenes.
You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
Chiaroscuro is a type of low-key lighting with a high...
Boom. Chiaroscuro is a type of low-key lighting. I'm pretty sure I said that.
High contrast
Pretty sure.
ratio. This is seen most frequently in film noirs to enhance the subgenre's mysterious and dangerous qualities. Check out our video on chiaroscuro to learn more.
Chiaroscuro. Okay.
A cinematographer must also choose between hard light and soft light. Hard light is more directional light that creates stark shadows, which works best in more dramatic or intense scenes. Soft light is more diffused and generates less defined shadows. This type of lighting is often used for happier or romantic scenes. Some of the best naturally occurring soft light comes during magic hour or golden hour. This occurs twice a day, just before sunset and just after sunrise, when the sunlight is less harsh and more colorful. Lighting placement in relation to the camera should also be considered. The dumb side, also called the broad side, is lighting the side of a subject which is closer to the camera, often giving
There's that example of side lighting we talked about earlier.
the subject a more approachable feeling. The smart side, also called the short side, refers to lighting the side of a subject that is not facing the camera, giving the subject a more dramatic look.
That was the short side or the smart side? Yeah. And then what was the other side called? The dumb side.
Side, also called the broad side, is lighting the side of a subject which is closer to the camera, often giving the subject a more approachable feeling. The smart side, also called the short side, refers to lighting the side of a subject that is not facing the camera, giving the subject a more dramatic look. Lens flares are created when light hits the lens, the shapes and colors of which differ depending on the lens.
For me, it literally is just this aesthetic thing that I like, which I absolutely am guilty of overusing and realize that it can be insanely distracting. But I do love the look of it, and it's just this incredible look that for some moments feel appropriate.
Yeah, that is cool. I second
out
that.
of focus elements in a shot, typically points of light that often add a romantic or painterly texture to the image.
Booking.com has all kinds of stays because some
That's
love
really
a rustic
cool.
cabin. Others feel.
Now that we've got these key.
Okay. Well, that's as much as we're going to dive into it, because now we're going to get into lighting gear and equipment, and I don't give a shit about any of that. I don't need that knowledge in my brain. Kiwasabi, get it out of here. So that's it right there. I'm going to end the stream, and that is our stream on the deep dive into lighting. I noticed I didn't call it deep dive into lighting gear. All right. So that covers element 4 of our 8 elements of film theory. The next element will be color, which I'm super excited about that one, because we get into color theory, which is something I learned about in high school and art classes. Everybody does in your like basic art classes. And for some reason, that knowledge stuck with me through the rest of my life. So really excited to talk about the color aspect of film theory, and that won't be next week. Next Friday, if you're interested in this film theory type stuff, will be formalism film theory. We're going to go over the actual film theory, type of film theory that is formalism, and then the next week we'll deep dive into color, right? So next week, next Friday is formalism film theory, and then the Friday after that, we'll be learning about color. Okay, so the next stream I do, because I don't stream on the weekends, next stream will be next Monday for a Mental Health Monday, and that'll be the worst or most disturbing mental health disorders. I went through, looked at some of the scariest mental health disorders that you can get just to freak myself out and you, and that'll be Monday stream, all right? So anyways, to anybody who watched live, I know a few people popped in and out. Cutie, I know you were there the whole time, as always, so thank you, beautiful. To anybody that watched this live, or to anybody who sees this on YouTube, I hope you learned something new and enjoyed the stream. If so, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you're interested in learning more about this subject, lighting, don't forget to check out all the videos that I have linked in the description. But until then, everybody have an awesome weekend. And thank you so much for hanging out and tuning in. See you later.